Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
So I had kind of an ulterior motive today, which was to prepare you for next week's assembly. But we'll get to that because there's some more important things to talk about first. You know, so many feelings, so much exhaustion at the relentlessness of news of things that ought to be unbelievable and yet keep happening. So little confidence about what we can do and what kinds of efforts will make a difference. So much sadness about losing a great leader so violently. I know that more than a few of you personally know Senator Hoffman and also knew Speaker Melissa Hortman. This is a loss felt inside our circle, inside our house, and we're grieving. And we must grieve. We must condemn the violence. We must continue to show up and hold firm to our values. We must remain committed to bringing our voice out into the community and to keep speaking up until we are heard. As the news broke yesterday, there were many questions about whether or not all of the No Kings rallies around town would go on as planned, and even if they did, if it would be safe to attend. And so it was heartwarming, reassuring to join tens of thousands of people who flocked to St. Paul yesterday to show up. Yeah. And I mean, to throw no shade on anyone who made the choice to stay home, because each person had to make the right decision for themselves. This was, I think, my fourth or maybe fifth rally at the Capitol since returning to Minnesota. And while I've always felt in the company of a few thousand of my closest friends, yesterday felt a little different to me. Kinder, more connective, more intentional. People were not there for the spectacle or the entertainment value. They were there because it really mattered to them to show up for democracy, to use our freedom of speech and our freedom to congregate, to call out corruption for what it is, and to call for a return to democracy and human decency, and to be reminded of the power of the people. And we were. And so I wonder, just as I have wondered for the past 10 years or so, about how we have created such deep divisions in and among us as citizens. Such divisions that anyone, would come to think that killing another human who they happen to disagree with to be the right course of action. Now, of course, I don't know what beef yesterday's killer has or why he was angry enough to do such violence. I have no illusions that he could have been reasoned with or befriended. Of course, he should be found and held accountable. But my people, retribution cannot be the answer. Demonizing each other isn't the answer. After a similar act of violence a few years ago, the UUA released this statement. Unitarian Universalism believes in the right of free speech and the democratic process. Attacks like Saturday's weaken democracy, and the Unitarian Universalist Association condemns this attack. At a time when democracy is already at risk, these events will only make our political environment more precarious. And as we prepare to meet this moment, we must return to our spiritual grounding and faithful practice to take a breath, to reflect together, to wait for emerging truth over quick speculation, to anchor ourselves in communities and relationships that foster resilience and liberation and strategy, to cultivate nuance and to seek out deep wisdom, political analysis, and spiritual grounding, as misinformation is always rampant. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition is rooted in the values of human dignity and justice and compassion and democratic principles. And we will remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting our democracy and the integrity of its principles and the rights of all of its people. Let us keep love at the center. We are in this together. Anchoring in communities and relationships that foster resilience and liberation and strategy, that is certainly an answer. Holding military parades is not. Organizing for democracy is an answer. Organizing for freedom is an answer. Organizing for love and keeping love at the center, this is the answer. One of our speakers at the Capitol rally was a poet, and I think from St. Paul. Unfortunately, I don't have their name or the text of their poem, and yet its message sticks with me. They said that these bricks that we carry are heavy, but we cannot put them down. And that these bricks have been carried by generations of people who continue to carry them and to lay the groundwork. They said that you and I don't have to be the light or to be responsible for doing it all by ourselves, but rather that together our work is to build the lighthouse, brick by brick. Remember what the title of my talk for today was? Free to flourish amid difference. To flourish. When there are people around us who we really, really, really don't agree with, geez, it just feels all wrong right now. Except that I think it's not entirely. I doubt that yesterday's shootings were about something as ubiquitous as a political agreement, and yet, what would it be like for us, all of us, to actually have the tools to be comfortable with difference, with differing opinions, and to coexist peacefully? Governor Walz spoke of this in the press conference yesterday morning, saying that the democracy and the debates in the halls of Congress, in state houses, in school boards, is a way to settle our differences peacefully and to move society to a better place. And to a small extent, that's what I'd planned to talk about today, to do some wondering with you about how we can, even here at FUS, coexist with love for each other, even when we disagree. Humans do not flourish in divided silos where differences are not tolerated. It is, I believe, our differences that bring life-giving energy to us and to our communities. We need each other in order to experience wholeness, even as we all know, our differences can make the going tough sometimes. The other day I had lunch with a friend who told me about how they had invited a group of people together for a specific purpose. And I am, of course, changing the details to protect the innocent, which was, let's say the purpose was to form a band. Now, this is something that my friend had wanted to do for a long time. They have a vision for who this band would be, what kind of music they'll play, where they'll perform. But after getting together to rehearse a couple of times, it became clear that the person they'd hoped would be the lead singer is of a very different political persuasion. And now, well, it doesn't feel to my friend like the band will be what they had hoped for. They'd envisioned sharing a kind of homogeneous worldview. They'd felt that having this person in the group meant the dream wouldn't come to be. And my friend was struggling with what to do, about whether to have a direct conversation with the singer with the intent of asking them to leave the group, or maybe to allow the dream to fall apart by simply not setting up any more rehearsals. or to try to build a relationship with the singer, assuming that this would mean that the band would likely not provide the tight camaraderie that was hoped for. Now, of course, there are more than these three options, but what would you do? How would you feel in that situation? As I listened to my friend, I was thinking about FUS, this community. While allowing for the fact that not everyone here would have had the same concerns or reactions, it's true that I have been told in various ways that this community provides a kind of homogeneous band of humanist-identified people. People who have found here or helped to create here a place where certain words and beliefs and worldviews just don't fit in, and further, maybe even shouldn't be tolerated, a kind of oasis. I've even heard once, albeit second or third hand, so not something that I have verified, that because I once used a prayer in an assembly, a certain person had left and did not intend to return. And I get this. I really do. Having a kind of caucus space makes it possible for us to be comfortable and to clarify our positions and to parse things out among like minds and to work on building our own lighthouse the way we want without any interference or disturbance. And there's another story, one which some of you may have been directly involved in, about the FUS youth group traveling to a General Assembly several years ago and there witnessing a service that was so unlike their experience here at FUS that, well, I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I understand they felt unseen and not included and maybe had something of an identity crisis because the Unitarian Universalism on display there was not the Unitarian Universalism they knew. And I get this too. I do. I've been to many General Assemblies and UU ministers' gatherings, and we're not all alike. And I can understand the youth group's experiences and feelings because I too don't always feel comfortable. Sometimes I feel like I'm not quite on the same page. And I also feel that such services, and I also see that such services have been led by people who are younger than I and often by people of color, and I see people celebrating and finding community, and it's joyful and it's beautiful. And even if sometimes I cringe a little bit or feel challenged by what I'm hearing, I see that our movement is growing and evolving, and I want to celebrate that. So I don't have this dissonance and difference thing figured out. I really don't. I don't have the answer. I just have lots of questions. And so I'm inviting you to ponder it with me. What do we do with our discomfort, especially in our own spaces, when we don't all want the same things? Now, next Sunday, you are all invited to a watch party, which you can attend either here at FUS or at the Riverview Theater, where several congregations will be gathering, to watch the General Assembly Sunday service live streamed from Baltimore. While I know a few of the participants, I had no hand in planning that service. I have no idea what its vibe will be like or what the speaker will say. But as I said, my ulterior motive today was to prepare you for that experience. An experience that it might not feel like the usual FUS assembly. What I do trust from prior experience is that the music will be beautiful and the speaker's words will be provocative and powerful, and I truly hope you can watch it and take it in and learn. Because here's the rub, as I see it anyway. Unitarian Universalism holds pluralism as one of our core values. We say that we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture and experience and theology. Yet, as is true for most highly held values, it's not easy to hold and practice them. It's not easy to hold and practice pluralism, and maybe that's what values are all about. Their goals, their aspirations, visions of something different, things we haven't yet achieved. You know, embracing pluralism really follows naturally from the historical core values of this faith, the inherent worth and dignity of all, and the freedom of religion, and an embrace of multiple sources of wisdom. If you believe all those things, that people have the right to their own reasoning, make decisions for themselves, that they're free to choose what they believe, that they can lean into any sources of wisdom to find that. If we hold all those things to be true, then how can we not value pluralism, which is the coexisting presence of difference, of diversity? Pluralism is this place where free and open dialogue challenges us to evolve and grow, a place where we can choose to let go of the idea that no one way is 100% right, where we can learn from one another, even as we freely search for our own truth and meaning. And like I say, that's the rub. I want you as a community to fully embrace who you are and to be clear about what it is that unifies you. That's so important. And I also want you as a community to have an open door and to be willing to receive difference, not as threatening, but with curiosity and respect, fully trusting that you're free to hold your truths, to be who you are, right alongside someone who has differing views, to not be afraid of difference. Because really, most of the time, there's no reason to be afraid of difference. It's just our human community. I mean, if we could do that with one another, to coexist, well, I don't really know because I've never really experienced it. I can't guarantee that it would lower the temperature when there are disagreements or that it would break down walls between us. But I think it would. I believe it would. Because what if being able to coexist peacefully amidst difference is the thing that will save us? I close with these words of Reverend Hope Johnson. We are one. A diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community. Together, we are one. So let us show up for freedom and democracy, allowing that freedom makes difference possible. Let us insist that no one should be targeted for who they are or what they stand for. As we, brick by brick, build our lighthouses, let us keep love at the center. We are in this together. May it be so.
Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.